But Dr. Loren Michaels Harris, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Good to be here.
This conversation is one that I've been looking forward to. I think you have the most unique, interesting story, and especially inspiring story that I've ever heard. So thank you for doing this. It seriously means the world.
Am I being punked? I'm just saying. I'm kidding. But and honestly, I appreciate that, but it's just, I don't think hearing something like that could ever be easy, you know. And I say that for people so that everyone understands that when someone says something like that, it's hard to fully understand because you were so close to it that you go, what are you talking about? It's really not that big of a deal, but I get it and I appreciate that. So, and I hope I never am used to hearing it.
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading the Los Angeles Tribune last night where you have a 2-page segment in it. And the thing that stuck out to me was you said, my friends, yes, hurt people, but healed people help people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really profound. And I'm curious what led you to that belief.
I got tired of living a ... life where it's like when you, for instance, you'd hear hurt people, ... And they just leave it there. Like that was the end of the story. And oftentimes a lot of us take on those ... as the all in all, the reality. When it's not, it's just where some lazy person left it off. So I decided a long time ago that wasn't going to be my narrative.
Where does your story start?
Where everyone else's does, in the beginning or once upon a time,
Mm-hmm.
depending on if you're a believer or you're no. I don't believe in. Oh, can we cuss on here?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, crap. I know. I backed out. I bailed at the last second. Sorry, you guys. No, but I mean, really in the beginning, because a lot of people, and this is important too, a lot of people say, well, when I was 17, something happened. Well, you didn't come out of a womb 17. You'd have been in the world records. Oldest person ever born. No, it starts the moment. For a lot of us, people think it's when they slap us on the butt or we come through the womb. But a lot of us, including myself, the story started before I even got here. Because two women were discussing where I was going when I got here, before I got here.
Because you were going to be given up for adoption.
Right. Or at least held, let me take care of him temporarily. That was the negotiations they were having.
Why did you need to be held temporarily from somebody other than your birth mom?
Well, because she wasn't really equipped for me. First of all, getting a little ahead of it, but I found out later I wasn't really planned. Let's put it that way. So she had 4 other kids. She was single. She had migrated to Michigan from Arkansas with a few other women who were escaping just situations with their significant other husbands, whatever it was, and they wanted a better life, and there was a lot of work in the factories in the early 60s in Michigan. So they went, and my mom went, left my dad, which I have the same father as my other siblings, but she found out he was like bigamist. Isn't that when you're married to multiple people at the same time? So apparently she was like wife number 3.
Wait, and like actually married?
Yeah, I was his 19th child.
Oh.
Yeah, so actually married. He was an over-the-road truck driver. So, I mean, he put talk about rubber to the road.
19
Oh, wait
kids?
a minute, 19 kids. That doesn't quite work, does it?
Is he paying child support? No way.
Well,
Like,
he's
ducking and
gone
dodging.
now. He's out of here now, but I doubt it. I just know this. He was not he shouldn't have. He wasn't relationship material. I know that much.
He wasn't a holy man, huh?
And I never met him personally. I talked to him on the phone once on his deathbed. I talked to him. But, how much of that can you really
What do you do then?
hold up? I mean, it's a deathbed thing. So, but anyway, but my mom, I had a lot of time with compared to what I had with him, even though I didn't meet her until I was 32 years old. So, I'll say this to throw something out there about my mom and our journey, just like the other 21 women who played that role, mother, for me in their own way over the years. They each played a specific role. You know what I'm saying? They really did. And I just have to start saying I have to do better. I have to do better when I tell these stories.
Why? You're an amazing storyteller.
I know, but I mean, as far as letting people know that don't think that either one of these women, any of them even the worst of the worst, because some of those women, honestly, I don't know how they let the word, the MOM shouldn't even be spit in their direction. They shouldn't be anywhere near those three letters. They just shouldn't. It's just wrong. But nonetheless, they too played a specific role. It showed, because sometimes we're in situations with people, not because they're just horrible, horrible people or we're horrible, horrible people, but sometimes we're in those situations because somewhere in life, we're going to be glad that we never became that person.
It teaches you a lot.
It teaches you a whole lot.
Yes.
You know, so, and you get to see what is real, what really exists. Because that's when every time I saw someone who, that's what I learned the most with children and from children and when I was in foster care. And I wouldn't fight for myself even before I went into foster care. My mom and they would try to like get me to fight. Quit getting picked on. You know. And I wouldn't fight for myself. But then when I got in foster care, I suddenly was able to rush and learn that I was pretty good at fighting. But when I was standing up for someone else. And that was the beginning of me learning that I'm an empath. You know, that's where I was spiritually learning, whether I realized it or not, that I hold space for certain things. And that is where the 4 pillars, like the 4 agreements, do your best and be impeccable with your word and on and on.
What is it? Don't make assumptions.
Uh-huh.
What's the 4th one?
Don't make assumptions. Don't take anything personally. And, you know, be impeccable with your word and always do your best. And you're kind of forced when you see, you know, bullies and stuff. As a kid, I was like, it would hurt. It would feel like someone punched me when you see, it wasn't the meanness coming from them. I didn't give that any power, but the recipient, when you could see how it just, an invisible hand would just like either grab a kid and or slap them or spit in their face, that it hurt them as if, and you could, because here's what I learned. When something is real to someone, that makes it real. Whether I get it or see it or believe in it or whatever or not, if it's real to you, then that makes it real. And I learned that by feeling the gut punch when someone was being bullied or picked on. And I found that I can rush to aid. And it was where I was indoctrinated into the baptism of the importance of easing suffering through being of service to people. That you can ease suffering simply by being of service to people, you know. And that is a lifesaver. That's a golden parachute. Because when I couldn't be good to myself many times in my journey, that thing that made me want to be of service allowed me to be good to someone else, which always got me back to me. You see what I'm saying? So that's a big piece.
I've got to say, so it's called Permission to Shine, the podcast that we're on right now. And I have to give you 0 permission because you have one of the most, what?
This isn't Jimmy Kimmel?
Shut up.
Oh, look at the time.
Oh, he's out. He's leaving. He's leaving. No, come back.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
It will be someday. I have to give you 0 permission because you have such a magnetic personality. Like going out with you last night, we're on the sidewalk and he's just making friends with everybody, the host. You have this way to just break through people's barriers. And I think you give other people permission to shine and to be themselves. And you've certainly given that to me. And I want to say thank you.
Oh.
And you were talking about how you need to do a better job of telling stories. And I just want to like give you the space. If there's anything today that you want to dive into that you haven't before, you know, or things you want to explore, like just feel welcome and comfortable doing that. I just want to get that off my chest.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So going back into the future, what is it that you remember about navigating your childhood when you think about it?
So that you have a great reference point for this answer, I'm going to take you back to the little girl that we just saw at lunch. That looking through the lens that I was afforded to look through, the same way you saw her looking at us. Just curiosity, not fear. not, um, and that's hard for people to wrap their mind around when they hear me say it, because just like earlier, again, when you said, because of everything you've gone through, and you're saying, how did you put it?
You checked me on it.
Yeah,
I'm surprised and I'm very impressed with how optimistic you are considering everything that you've gone through.
right. And the reason that doesn't work for me, that that statement, is because I know you're only using half of the equation.
Do you
You
feel used when I say that?
No, I feel encouraged to turn the dimmer switch up on the light, which shines on the possibility of that truth that I want you to know, that it's never just one thing. Because see, when you say that, you say it based on this side of the coin.
Yes.
But we're having this conversation here because there was another side of the coin.
Because you have a lifetime achievement
Right.
award from the president, et
you-
cetera, et cetera, et
All
cetera.
these things,
Yes.
exactly, that everything that I've ever lived, how bad could it have truly been? It led me to another divine moment, which we're sharing right here, right now. Same thing with all of you. I mean, if this is a replay or whatever you're doing or whatever the date is, it still is a truth that a lot of twists and turns had to go into a lot for us to be here right now. Could have been anywhere. I could be saying anything, but for whatever reason, all of us have been chosen to be in this specific place at this specific time together right now. And so the power of now was another big thing back to your original question. And that's why I was referencing that little girl, because kids will find joy in whatever is closest that brings them joy. That's why people are always making fun of, all the money I spent on those toys, and she's playing in the empty box. Because it brings them joy. You see? And that juxtaposition, that's a clue. That's a universal clue. That adds, even if you start that smart, why does it take $14 million in debt one day for you still looking for that same joy you once found in an empty box before you even really knew anything compared to the ordinary set of circumstances? So that's really it for me. Is I learned not just my lens, but that was another beautiful thing about all the kids that I was constantly afforded close interaction with. Not just the ones in the foster homes and stuff like that, but kids at the school that I would go to, or the neighborhoods that I would be placed in. Because there's kids that don't live in that house that play. They know a bunch of foster kids live there, and some were very nice and some used it to make themselves and their situations feel better because their parents used us as examples of why they've got it so good. And that's where I began to learn that you tag team, you pass on what somebody passes to you. That's why once, like when I beat my first bully up for someone else, right? And they became my best friend. And I found out
the person you beat up?
Yeah, the bully. Because I didn't want to stop there. I didn't feel the victory was in winning that fight. That was how I learned that behind that, there was a real fight. And that's when and the fight was him not being able to share his story. And so I became his friend.
Choose love.
Mm-hmm. And found out he was being bullied by a bad boyfriend of his mother, who was an addict, who beat him, who molested him, who did all these things to him. So now I went from being his, the bully to him, to championing for him. And I'll tell you, I met one of my best friends today at 61, almost 62 years old. He's a guy named Fred Shepard. Hi, Fred. He's a political science.
Hi, Fred.
I know. I just love Fred Shepard. I do. Man, do I love Fred Shepard.
It's a hell of a name.
Fred Shepard. Fred Shepard was like the perfect kid in my eyes. I used to look at him and, in school and say, he's so smart and He lived in a big house in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It was where I aged out of the foster care system. So University of Michigan is there, and his parents both worked for the University of Michigan. His mom was the women's tennis coach, and his dad was an economics professor. And their house was like had been a big frat house once. It was that big, right? And he lived in the maids' quarters up there. But Fred, I went to public school, and Fred saw me, and we became friends, and we were in junior achievement. But every day we'd get off the bus. We rode the same bus, and I'd get off someplace totally, like maybe 3 miles from the foster. It was a group home, so it was like a dormitory, big parking lot, not a driveway. And it was right across from the arboretum where people would walk their dogs and stuff. And I had been getting off that bus and walking 2 or 3, well, probably 2 miles. It wasn't that far, but 2 miles at least. I mean, at most 2 miles out of the way, um, getting off with the rich kids and the popular kids. And then, okay, bye, see ya. I had already staked out the neighborhood. I knew my address, 1248 Apple Valley Way. And I knew everything about the house, the color, in case anyone ever asked me. And I knew no kids from my school lived on that street. That's the depth I went to create um, a protective barrier between my story because I felt ashamed. And so back to why I love Fred Shepard so. Fred was walking his dog once on a weekend in the Arboretum and looked through the foliage and saw me playing basketball at the group home. And he knew what that place was. Everybody did. And because it was always in the news for something. Fred got me one day, he just sat next to me on the bus and said, get off at my house today. And I was like, why? He says, because I want you to come over to my house today. And when we got there, we got to his room and he put Stevie Wonder's Songs in the Key of Life on the album. And I have that album to this day. And he said to me, I know your secret.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, what do you know? Because the interesting part was, as much as I'd gone to hide it, when he said that, it wasn't that building that my mind went to. It was a whole bunch of other stuff where I felt the damage really lived. So that was why he was very instrumental in my self-healing journey beginning. So anyway, he said to me, I know where you live, and why do you get off and make a fuss about going? Why do you do that? You don't need to do that. I'm your friend anyway. And people will be your friends anyway. And if they aren't because of where you live, they're not worthy of being your friend. Over the years, I would watch and I'd see Fred moving through life. It was easy because he'd be on CNN for, because he's that smart. He was that successful. He went to Ivy League school. And when I reached back in, when I felt worthy to reconnect with Fred, like 25, 30 years later, it was as if no time had passed. He says, is this my friend, Larry Loren? Because he knew my story of having had both names. And I was like, it is. And he goes, there you are. And so I guess, wow, I'm surprised that I went there about Fred. But the reason I say that is because I think we should all do better, or we could all do better, letting people know whenever we can what kind of an impact they truly had on your journey. And because I feel so honored that Fred is alive and I'm alive, and I was able to find him and I was able to tell him, because that kind of thing didn't turn out so well once for me when I was looking for the 3 boys that were the first 3 in that room with me in my very first foster home. Remember I was telling you about that?
Mm-hmm.
And then I 20 some years later, I went looking for them and found out that none of them had lived past the age of 14. And so now I uncovered what would become a few decades of survivor guilt in a way. But again, too, don't cry for me, Argentina. That too led to me uncovering what I needed. See, what I love about trauma which that's so funny. I snorted. What I love about trauma,
I
seriously,
love you.
what it is, it's true. What I love about it is it can get you to places nothing else can get you to. It can force you into learning how to believe in something that protects you in a way that bodyguards could never protect you. You know, it sharpens you.
But how do you not let it get in the way of living your life? Right? So many
Well,
of us, I'm sure all of us in this room are like, shit, we've got this trauma.
yeah.
How do we move past that so it's not being a block?
Believing it's never about just one thing. Um, I remember early for me, one of the things that made it easier was to remember something that I had said or felt this way about before. Have I ever felt this way? Have I ever said, I hate her? Oh my God. Or have I ever said, oh my God, I wish I was dead. I can't go to school Monday. I can't do this again. I can't be abused again. I can't, whatever it is. And I would say, yeah, I did. And how did you get through it? So it was like self-talk, I think, you know. Um, and then and this may shock a lot of people, but I've seen them since I was a young kid. Before the trauma even came, I had met one. Truthfully, I did. And I speak about angels. I did. When my life was perfect, before anybody had died or any of that had happened, and
How old were you?
I was Larry. When I saw the first one,
Mm-hmm.
I must have been around 7 because I was at my grandma's house. And I'll never, oh boy, of course I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. But the interesting part is, too, everybody, all the adults they all were afraid of what I was describing. Like it was some horrible negative entity or something. And which is weird, to me now. But I knew because I didn't make my heart, it didn't. Well, I saw when I was 7. I saw in the shower because I would always look in the shower in her house before I would use the bathroom. Because she kept it drawn, and I would always look in there. And it's that thing about if you whatever you keep looking for something, eventually you're gonna find it. And this time, I pulled the curtain back, and there he was. And I remember I just scanned from the feet up, and it was in a robe, and you know the color of the grayness, and the belt that looked like hemp, and the whole thing, and the face was like just beautiful and just all of it. And then when I did enter the system, and every time they would drop me off, I told you this before. Every time they would drop me off at a foster home, right? It was kind of a game I'd play. They said, okay, go unpack or go meet the other kids or whatever. And I go, okay. You people acting like they're walking away and then they're just like, stop. That's what I would do. And I'd hide over there and they'd be like, okay, now that he's gone, that kind of thing. He's good in school. He's good, he's very obedient. You're not gonna have any trouble of him, but you might hear him having conversations and no one's there but him. Let's just put it this way. He has a lot of imaginary friends, and I would be around that corner cracking up because I'd be looking at my 2 angels and they'd be going, stop, would you stop? I mean, it would be a game. And why I say that, some people go, oh, you didn't really see anything. But I'll tell you what it did. Trauma grows with us, but trauma, it never rides alone. It's too much of a coward to go alone. So riding sidecar with it is opportunity. That's why I say I love trauma, seriously, because it led me to everything that matters. That's why today, honestly, when I say goodbye to something that doesn't serve me anymore, it's a 3-step process. I face it. I call it forward. I need to see you in my office. Have a seat. So here we are. Addiction. How you been? You know. And slide the pink slip across the table. Listen, you have been here. You know, we've had some yum yummers. You know, we chopped it up. You know, sometimes we thought we had fun, sometimes it was horrible. And you know, took me through a lot. But I willingly went through and let you take me through a lot. But your time here is finished. You've served me well, but you are now no longer serving me, which means you're not serving me. If anything that does not serve me, you must go. So I forgive you for having ill intents and intentions for me from the start. But it doesn't really matter at the end of the day anyway, because I want to thank you and bless you because I couldn't have gotten here without you. So I want to now commission you to go out and do the same thing you did for me for as many people as you can. Because now that, to me, that's like using, you know, it makes those things that don't serve you go, what? What you talking about, Willis? You know, how are you blessing me? Because I have to start taking the power back now if you are really going to be gone. So now that I've banished you, now every time anything hints of it, I go right to it. I use the same words. I see the same things in my mind that it used to whisper to make me see things in my mind, and I turn it on those things that do not serve me. I talk to it like it used to talk to me. And boof. Bye-bye. Bye, Felicia. To the left. Right.
Yes.
And that's one of the most important things, and I love that about my work with kids, because we have that power. You know, I see kids who have been bullied and this and the other take that mindset we just described and write a book using characters in a world that they created, naming everything from the world that they created.
Mm-hmm.
And they use it to help other kids get through a place where they feel the world has them on mute and no one can see them for millions of miles. Mm-hmm. And the power, I'm telling you, there's a reason childhood is the briefest season in our journey. It's the shortest. You watch adults. Oh, girl, you put on some weight. You haven't seen so and so. Ooh, you done cut your hair since I saw you last year. No big deal. But let it be a 4-year-old that you see, you're like, oh my goodness. Overnight. People look at their kids and a minute ago I was changing your diaper. Now I can barely get you on the phone. It's that fast. So to me, I started from what I have lived, I've been able to see, oh, that's why it's so brief. Things start early. I think things can see that anointing, that gift that's on each of us when you're an innocent, because you're fearless. It's all about the adventure as it's supposed to be, counting it all joy. Kids I heal today. I can heal by going out on my deck. I feel like Peter Pan. I can go out on my deck and close my eyes and listen for kids in the neighborhood at play. And that sound that I hear is the same as being in an emergency room and them suturing up a wound or putting a bandage on a burn. It is immediate healing. It is. That's why old people like to be around children. They're magical because they are within a magical season. Mm-hmm. And anything that is coming after a kid during the magical season and it's in an untoward way, we have to stop it.
How do we protect that?
By listening to our kids and giving them permission to speak what they feel. The Power We Symposium, you pulled out. That's what that day is about.
That's a conference that you put on to help with underserved kids in the Chicago area.
Yeah.
Last year was 250 people.
Mm-hmm.
Next year is going to be 750 kids.
750 kids.
That's
we
incredible.
went to Romania. We've been to Atlanta with it. And it's now, in this year, for the first year, it's open to all kids. Mm-hmm. Not just inner city, all kids.
And the slogan is?
always together, never alone.
Yes, it is.
You know, because everything that takes our kids from us, it takes the kid from us as adults.
Yes.
Your inner child is broken, this, that, and the other. You can't dream. People come to me, the people that I coach, and I say it right in the commercial for it. The people come to me because they are afraid, for whatever reason, that they're losing their ability to dream. Because when people say, "What kind of coach are you?" I don't know what to call that, but I work with people who, for whatever reason, somewhere in their spirit, in their world, they're afraid that they're losing their ability to dream because it's not matching up to what some chart says or people that they're lining their accomplishments or lack of up against, because we're pitted. That's that stupid Google. Type it in right now if you're in front of a computer or if you have your device. Show me a picture of the ladder of success, and they're going to show you somebody in a suit or a business outfit on a ladder that is just up in the air somewhere. It doesn't show you where it's going, doesn't land anywhere, and there's always people above them. And when you look up and you see, how can you be motivated to do things that this world has never seen, to be a you that you've never been, if you're constantly being groomed to look at the butt of someone, and then you wonder why you're crapped on? Think about it. That's what you get when you Google, show me the ladder of success, because they're pitting us against each other by she's above or below. He's in front or behind. They have more, you have less. When we should be beside each other, locking arms, a solid front. Red Rover, send whomever right over. We did it. See, back to things we did when we were innocents. Things you did in play. We're setting it up for things for you to do for the rest of your life. Everything you were that was put in front of us as a little one on the blanket, the little Fisher-Price circles that you lay on top of each other until you have all the way up shaped like a pylon in a cone. That is, to understand, what things mean as you, all of those things are building blocks. That's what they are. And somehow, through trauma and through things that happen when we are innocents or we lose it, it's like the wick. It's just, but every single one of us has multiple lighters. We just need to do better at using them to relight people's wicks, and you do that when you're around each other, when you encourage each other,
Well, and you mentioned that you do coaching, and I think that's awesome because even in our time together, you've helped me a lot foster my kind of inner child, which don't we all want that for us? And last night I was saying, I have the most insane group of friends, and I meant that in a positive way. And you said, hey, stop. And I was like, I love when someone just takes control and is like, you did that wrong. And you were like, you have the most insanely wonderful group of friends.
Yeah.
And that is such a small but powerful tip.
Yeah.
How did you come to that? And can you give more examples?
Yeah, because I see everything, and they've always worked with me. When I say they, I mean everything that is greater than me. God, Jesus, angels, prophets, spirit, whatever. I don't care what you call it. I don't care. They don't care what you call it. Just call it, right? So I keep that number on speed dial. So everything is driven through imagery with me. I even see words like three-dimensionally. I really do. And that's imagination, and that's adventure. And, my greatest joy as a kid was when they would read books in school, the teacher, and we're all down on the floor. And then my favorite part was when he would take the book and turn it around and show us the pictures. Because I was anxious to see, did that picture come even close to the one I wrote on the page of my mind as she was reading the experience in the book? And that taught me to see these things. So for instance, when I say that thing about insanely wonderful friends, pushing a word that is a empowering word. So instead of having just good friends, have blessed friends. Instead of just occupying any old space, occupy sacred space. And don't spend your life gathering fond memories. Gather divine memories. And a divine memory isn't getting the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. A divine memory, I know this in my spirit. I'd rather look over and see they rolled the beautiful bean footage of not me up there getting some award or whatever, but I may have walked past someone who was hurting for whatever reason that day, and they weren't even letting anybody know, but I sensed it. And as I walked by, I put my hand on their shoulder, and then Spirit shows you where they took your hand, or they put their hand where yours left after you left. You don't even know, but where it was, they can still feel it. And healing began instantly, and you were responsible for that moment. To me, that is a truly divine moment. The things we've done when no one was looking, those things we did when everybody was asleep and you were the only one up, you know.
Mhm.
So when pushing those kinds of words next to things that matter to me, it always felt like, because it was an adventure. So I would put like broken glass along the walkway. So in case like light bulbs or something, in case something tries to break in and steal what I have in here, I'm fiercely protecting it. So when I say, instead of saying, it sure is strange how, no, isn't it strangely mystical and magical how every time I'm thinking about you, you call me? By putting that word next to it, I am protecting our relationship, our sacred space, because the promise is with two or more come together with that agape thing, fellowship. And when people say amen, it's in agreement. Even when people go, girl, whatever it is, that is co-signing, that is an agreement. It turns a spigot on, a spiritual spigot, because you are within divine rights now. You are an heir of everything that comes with divinity, which means, as the only creature here that speaks, I now use, and I do this every day. I literally stand wherever I'm at when it comes over me to do it, and I say, I'm speaking to everything that was created in this universe through the same portal that I know gave me everything that gives me such joy in being of service and easing suffering in this world. I'm speaking to you, and I'm giving you permission right now, in this moment, in this day, to help me find my highest self in this day. I give you that permission right now, in 3, 2, 1. Now go. Because once I started doing that, I found I don't have to banish or get rid of things and take people or things out of the line in my life that don't belong there. I don't have to waste any energy on it. When I give permission to those things that are here to aid me in doing my best in this journey, those things that are hanging around not to do good for me, they leave on their own. Oops, gotta go. Boom, just like that.
Mhm.
And then the more you do that, at least for me, I find that, like here, like I was telling you, I keep a thing on my desk where I cut a piece of paper like this. And I tell people, do you know what you're feeling right now when they're crying or they're going through? This just feels so, what it is you're no longer, you're in a sacred space, which means you're not someplace where you're being tolerated. You're in a space where you're being celebrated. You're not just, we don't just come from the same manufacturing plant. Like, isn't that something? We're both from the Haynes Company. No, we put our soul swatches together and go, look at this. We were literally cut from the same bolt of cloth. Both of us. When you find that in others, you'll never be alone again. That's when people call you out of the blue.
Mhm.
That's why people, we were telling you earlier, on their deathbed can wait and not transition until every person they want to be with one more time has come. Because you're cut from the same bowl. That's why twins and people can communicate. You were on my mind. You were on my mind. My sister Sandra Bay and I have that about our mother. We'll call each other, did you weigh? I know. I woke up with a 2 today. We don't even have to say it. Cut from the same bolt of cloth.
Wow.
Mhm. And that means too, family. That premise is how I learned. I'll never forget. I was in a jacuzzi in Scottsdale, Arizona when DJ, she was um, um, what do you call it? She composed music for the Phoenix Symphony. And she told me, she goes, I said something, and she goes, Loren, are you kidding me? You really don't know? And I was like, know what? I hadn't found my family yet. I was talking about looking for them. She goes, don't you know that family is based in love? It's only relatives that are based in blood. I'm your family because I love you. Whew. Life changing. Just like that. Life changing.
That's
And
the most
now,
important lesson.
yeah. And then I was up and ready to really go find my relatives because I already knew no matter what I found at the end of that rope, I already had family.
So you were born, and then were you adopted, or it was just like a temporary?
It was a backdoor deal. It wasn't a
It was
true
a backdoor.
adoption.
Okay,
An
so
illegal adoption is the actual term.
so you went to mother 2, we'll say for simplicity terms,
Yeah.
until you were 11.
Yeah.
What then triggered the rest of the 20?
She died.
She died when you were 11. Tragically?
Yeah. She had a stroke.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And then it was out to
Within a
the
week.
foster system. And over the series of the next 7 years, you went through 20 foster homes.
Yep. 22 total. Yep. Yeah. Right.
All in
20.
Michigan?
No, actually. Here's the first person to bring this part out, which is interesting because I was just reconnected with my brother, one of my brothers from the adoptive family, not even 6-7 months ago, after 50 years. And his house was actually foster home number one. Not really number one, but when I say number one, and that's so weird that I'm saying it like that because they weren't actual physical number one, but they stand out like none other. There's a line in the Goldcast video where I say that, there were moments where some women that crossed my path in the role of that mother, I tried to squeeze them out of my mind
Almost
for decades.
like
To
split
just
brain.
forget them. If I never see that woman again, it'll be too, that kind of thing.
Because of abuse?
Yeah. And to be honest with you, that line came from my experience with my brother's wife when I was in their home it was really foster home number 3, when the family finally got in a little to try to fight to keep me in the family. But I'd already been to 2 regular foster homes, but they took me and flew me to Missouri where they were. And I went in their house. And to be honest, I'm like this. I'm not going to go to my grave trying to protect somebody or hold my story because people are alive. I'm like this. If you don't ever want somebody to talk about something in your journey, then don't include it in your journey. So there's that. Because once you change the truth, it's no longer the truth. It's a version. And if you're really trying to do something in this world that survives and lives as legacy on the tongues and hearts of people for hundreds, perhaps thousands of years, then it has to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you fill in the blank. So I almost died there. And that's the place where I say, when I say first, because that's when I realized I could lose my life.
How did you almost die?
In here. Because I had a double ear infection. And he was gone. My brother was gone. He worked for Hallmark. And he was an artist. And he was gone on a road trip or something. And I had a temperature of 104.
Jeez.
And I was sweating because I slept in the living room and I was in there. And anyway, when he came home and rushed me to the hospital, I never went back because they filed, how did this happen? They put me on ice and all that. Right. I almost died. And we've never talked about that. And he saw my, the trailer from the movie I did last year and he called me. I still have it on my phone, the voicemail. And it was hard. And I thought when I went to Kansas City that after that call that I went there to speak, and I really thought we were going to get together, and I couldn't. And you know why? Because remember us earlier talking about the banishing and this, that, and other, and forgiving, how you have to do that. when you are within purpose, you got to live your own teachings.
Mhm.
Maya Angelou says that in one of her clips. You really have to live your own teachings. And I realized I wasn't, I couldn't, I was going to try to skip steps to meet with him because I couldn't forget. I don't know how to bring up what needs to be brought up in order to forgive or release myself or him or her or whatever. And you have to do justice to the protection of your journey by waiting until it's right. So that told me if I can't forgive him, it's most likely because I need to forgive myself about some piece of that yet. And so that's what I'm working on.
That's what I like about you. You look inside of yourself, not the other person, which I
Mhm.
think is really unique. So I have to congratulate
Well,
you.
because the power to do anything and everything is ours. Okay, great. Thank you for bringing that up because I'm glad we didn't miss this. This is so important. This is so, so important. Remember, I was telling you how Spirit gave me the download a couple years ago. I had been telling people from stages and in interviews for years that I was addicted to drugs for 14 years. And they said, you weren't addicted to drugs, right? I was like, what? How can that be? You weren't. Drugs didn't lie to you. They didn't magically jump into your system. You picked them up. You sought them out. You did all manners of things to make sure you were connected. They were your lover. For many decades, outside of the power of true love, Loren, your relationship with this entity was the strongest force with you on the planet outside of true love.
So you're doing drugs because it finally gave you a connection to something?
I was doing drugs not because I was addicted to the drug. I was addicted, they told me, I was addicted to abusing the gift of invitation. I kept inviting something in that never promised to do anything good for me. And they said, and how do you think it has so much power to destroy you? How many times did it tell you, I'm going to kill you, or try to get you to kill yourself, or take you into situations where you could have lost your life? Too many to count. And those are just the ones you're aware of. Those angels picked you up and swooped you out of many things that we haven't even shown you yet, but you'll see them. In time, you'll see them. That's what they told me. And so what I learned was, it's a lot. This is so crucial to remember. It's like really starting to get with me. I'm sorry.
No, don't be. Why are you sorry?
Because, well, it's so important at all times that we have to be so honest with ourselves. Because when we face things down the road, when you face things wherever it is in your journey that you go, oh, how did that go south? How did that go wrong? Whatever. You're going to get to a point eventually where you're going to go, all right, it was me. I was responsible for that going south, for that going wrong. And a lot of this stuff that we've been talking about here today, what it's really about for me is I already know that I have to do my best and be so honest with myself that I keep things within reach that stand out in my journey, that taught me something, that came to me that I can't explain how or whatever. Keep it within reach, because that is the only way. Because many days I wake up like, how do I know I'm going to wake up and be this guy for this moment today?
Rather than what?
Than the one who used to listen to kill yourself. You're not worthy. This, that, all the things that, see, no weapon formed against you, but says nothing about weapons that you create and say, oh, here, try this on me. That stuff, self-sabotage, all the things I would say to myself. I was talking about it today when we were at that Soho house, how I experienced, I could smell a little aroma on the air of imposter syndrome. Like, what are you doing in this place? When the guy said, are you a member or is he a member? Member?
It's like, oh, wait, neither of us are members. What are we doing?
Right. Is somebody going to find me out? Which way are they going to drag me out of here?
You were safe. What I want to know and what I want to dive into is the search for your birth mother. When does that begin? I mean, you go through, 22 homes. You get accepted into USC and other
Other
schools,
schools,
and you can't go because
because I'm still a ward of the state because I'm 17.
and the state wouldn't.
No FAFSA. Nobody. I'm going to give financial aid papers to my caseworker. Hey, I want to go. Can you fill out this, Mom? No, and your foster parents can't.
Are you pissed at that moment, or are you just like, that's just another thing? Got to keep it
No,
moving.
because I already knew. Because the thing was back then, and maybe even now, for all I know, they didn't expect kids in the system to have those dreams. Because most of the kids were in remedial. It was called. It wasn't even called. It was called special ed.
Yes.
Back then, they went to school in trailers outside of the school and stuff like that because they were moved so much. We moved around so much. But I'd been in parochial school, so I was ahead already. Plus, I read.
You were an academic.
I was. I loved it. I
Academic
loved
and
it.
social. That's a lethal
Mhm.
combination. And then when do you start searching for your birth mom?
I started, well, in the real world or in my spirit.
The real world.
Okay, here's that. I don't believe I ever really started searching for her as much as what happened before I literally started looking. I can say I started hearing like a siren's call,
Mm-hmm.
something out in the atmosphere pulling me.
Mm-hmm. But then you went investigation mode. Like
I
you
did.
flew to Utah.
I did.
You went to all these places, and you probably didn't have a ton of money,
No,
right? So
no.
it was.
They were spaced out over years. You know,
It was on your heart.
Yeah, I could work for a few years and then try to go look for her. You know, because it required like really going in, moving, and you know, doing undercover work and digging and visiting places. It was really a job, and so. And
What
then
was the final domino that got you to her?
you talking about that day in the grocery store? A suicide attempt. It was really, if I hadn't had the suicide attempt the night before, I would not have been in that place the next day that led to her. Which again, it's never about one thing. See, they don't make mistakes. That's just their way of keeping our journey interesting.
Yeah, there's never just one domino.
That's right. So I had been calling like I always did. I'd go to that town where I was born and go through the yellow pages, and people would say, "Hey, didn't you call us 2 years ago or 4 years ago or 8 years ago? Is this the same guy?" Yes.
Like, yeah, I'm still looking for my mom.
Somebody might have said something. I always did it. And this particular time, I just had enough. I was like, I'm done, and I can't do this anymore. And I was working on starting my event planning company. So I had paperwork all over my little studio apartment on the floor. And I decided I was done. So, and I had a lease car, and I said, I'm going to kill myself tonight. So I went to the Myers and I bought a big jug of Ernest and Julio Gallo wine, some razors, the kind you have to peel the paper off, some baby Orajel, thinking I could numb my wrist, some candles, and the Whitney Houston Bodyguard soundtrack. And then I came home and I put her on and I started drinking, and I got in the bathtub and I lit the candles and I put it on that song, I have nothing, nothing, nothing. Need a soundtrack. Right. And I'm snotting and crying. And I'm drunk now and I'm ready. I'm fine. I'm done. Let's go.
How old are you?
I am 32, because that's how old I was when I found my own. This was two days before, 2 to 3 days before. And I was in that bathtub, and I'd canceled my lease car. I threw all my food out because I was in an apartment at the top of a house, and the people that lived downstairs, I didn't want my food to spoil, and they smell that and not smell me decaying. I know, right? So who thinks this way? So I did, clearly. So anyway, so I canceled the car and I dump all my food outside, and I'm in there, and then I go to open the razors. And it's like, I don't know, 10 in a box. So I unwrap it, take the paper off, and I'm laying there and I'm all into it. Sing it, Whitney. You know, and then my fingers are rubbing the razor blade. And I'm like, sure, this feels rough. So I go up to the candle and I look. It's completely rusted on both sides. I mean, little chunks were missing out of the blade.
Chances of
Right.
that.
I opened every one in that box. The whole box had gotten wet. Because then I look at the box, it's all warped. So it had been wet somewhere. Every one of those razors was rusted. And I went, great. How can I use one of these? I'll get Lockjaw. and, and they're like, aha. And I'm like, aha, what? And they're like, why would you be worried about Lockjaw if you were going to be dead?
It's because you're not done here yet.
And I was like, hey, yeah, you're right. And I'm all drunk. And they're like, get out of, literally, they said, get your ass out of the tub. Go to bed. And I did. And I fell asleep with my head on that Yellow Pages as my pillow. And in that dream, I'll never forget it. I was looking at a wall. It had a calendar on it. And it said July 4th, Wednesday. And that I was born on the 4th of July. And the pages came on. And it was like a breaker switch. And then the breaker switch turned back on. And I was on a mountain of pages from the calendar. And a voice said, Loren, look at, these are all the days that have passed since you two have been apart. Wake up. It's time to find her. And I woke up. And I was like, and I looked at the Yellow Pages like, I guess I'm going to start calling again. And then all of a sudden, I felt like something kicked me in the stomach. I was like, oh, I'm starving. I was like, oh, I got to eat first. Oh, my head's killing me. Oh, I don't have any food. And then I was like, wait a minute. I'll go to the grocery store. Wait, I told him to pick up the car. So I ran to the window. And I looked down. The car was still there. So I go to the grocery store. And because I was an out-of-state student, I had to write a check. You had to use either your California license, your student ID, 2 forms. And I had those 2, and I had my birth certificate. So I chose everything but the birth certificate, but the birth certificate fell out of my day planner on the floor. And the woman behind me, I went to get my change because I asked for cash back. And I went to reach for my change, and I saw this woman reading. And it was the way I'd always folded it in and out. It was like worn, and you could see the stamp from the, state through it. And I was like, where's my birth certificate? Because it's hard to get, especially when you come out of foster care. So I was like, is that a birth certificate? And she's looking at me all weird. She's like, yeah, it is. Is it yours? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, oh. And I'm like, creepy lady, right?
Why is she looking at me all
She's
weird?
just, right. I mean, she's giving it to me, right? So I get my stuff, and I leave, and I'm out there putting it in the car. She comes running out without her stuff. She's like, she had a lot. And she's, I can't let you go. First thing I thought, what? I'm not stealing, right? that was last month, right? I'm not stealing. And she goes, that address on that birth certificate. She goes, I was born on that street. And we're not in the town that is. We're one town over. And I said, you were? And she goes, yeah. She goes, it says you were born on High Street in Benton Harbor, Michigan on July 4th, 1962. She goes, I'm wondering how come I don't recognize you. So I told her my story. And she goes, well, have you looked? I said, yeah, there's nothing on that street but projects now and an old boarded up abandoned house. And she goes, that house is boarded up, but it's far from abandoned. And I was like, huh? She goes, you see that van? She goes, that's a handicap van. Both my parents are in wheelchairs. She goes, they're in that house. My house is on the street behind their house, and there's a gate and a ramp between both houses. We boarded it up because the kids from the projects, when they're gone to medical appointments, they rob them. So we boarded it up. They don't know if they're in there or not. She goes, but they're in there. And if a woman had a baby on that street in 1962 on July 4th, my mother will know her. And I'm like, okay, not because I'd been looking for years. I didn't believe it was going to happen. So anyway, I go home, and I wasn't even done. I'm putting my groceries away, and the phone rings. She goes, yep, there was a woman, but she must have gotten married because her last name isn't Harris, because they had taken my real name off so I couldn't find her. I was looking for her maiden name. That's why nobody knew her. She wasn't Lucille Harris. She was Lucille Williams. Everybody knew Lucille Williams, but nobody knew of a Lucille Harris. So she goes, and this was the first time in all those years that it ever crossed my mind. I had never even considered it. She goes, but before I can get you her number, my mom wants to call her. You know, Lauren, not everybody wants to be found. And I was like, oh my God, I never even thought about that. So, but before I had a chance to get all in my screwed up head about that, the phone rang again. And she goes, okay. She said to give you her number. Are you ready? Do you have something to write with? I lied. I said, yeah, I didn't. So I was saying it in my mind over and over and over and over and over and over. And I just hung up and dialed it. And I can hear it right now. She was doing dishes. The water was running. And she said, hello. And then I was like, what am I going to say? I didn't think this through. So I said, oh, yeah, I'm doing some undercover detective. And she saved me from she goes, were you born on the 4th of July? And I said, yeah. But then in my mind, I thought that lady could have told her that. Because people tried to take me for money and stuff over the years. Oh, get in the car. Give us $100. We know your mom. We'll take you there. And then leave me somewhere and drive off. And, so a lot of stuff like that. Real mean people in the world sometimes. But she said, yeah. She goes, so the lady that called me said that her daughter met Loren. I said, yeah. She goes, but were you ever known by the name Larry? That wasn't on there. And I went, how would she know? I said, yeah. She goes, well, I suppose that makes me your mom. And that was that. So that dream that I came through that said, get up and find her was true. It
was
happened.
3 days later.
I found her that day.
Oh my gosh.
On the phone. I met her 2 days later. Because I needed to buy a tie. And I was like, well, I can't just meet her in anything. How do you dress? I borrowed a friend's car because I didn't want to go in that ugly brown lease car. And,
So you guys meet each other. You realize you have 4 siblings with her. You get to know them.
Yes.
And she takes you in, right? She gets you a new car. She brings you into the house.
Come live here. Yeah.
Which that had to be wonderful. And then how long do you have with her until she leaves you and passes away?
21 years.
You had her for 21 years.
Wow. 21 years. But you got to remember, my addiction to abusing the gift of invitation began after I met her. So 14 of those 20 years after finding her, I end up out on the streets.
How did that happen?
Because I found out that I was a product of rape, and some of the siblings said, we wish you would have stayed dead, and because they had been told I was dead and all these things. And, it was almost like they blamed me, like I packed up my Pampers and crawled out of my crib. I don't understand it, but, everybody has their own journey, and so it, sometimes, and I remember saying this to people that, sometimes when you ask for your truth, you have to be willing to be prepared for a lot of things you could have never seen coming.
Are you glad that you found out those really hard,
of course,
terrible truths?
Yeah. In the full scheme of things, absolutely. Because I need to know as much of the truth as I could find in order to leave as much of my truth as I can leave. If I leave a version, even if it isn't of my own design, my divine legacy has a chance of withering on the vine or living 500 years less on the tongues of people than it could have if I had given them. Because it's not, they told me a long time ago, don't build your legacy on things you did decades ago. In other words, don't count on the books and the things you leave behind. Count on your legacy being your legacy on things that you created moments ago. Which to me means living your best life every day. I tell my coaching clients that are speakers and influencers, your greatest content, your greatest form of healing, an opportunity to heal other people, is going to be found in the life you're currently living or that life you've just most recently lived. I think we should treat our stories as far as content and its nutrition, calorie, just it should be laden with calories. Never give the world 0 calorie content because you keep rehashing uh, crap from decades ago. People that hit stages. Yes, I was on QVC 30 years ago with this gadget and da 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 da. What have you done for us lately? That's how you must treat your gifts like manna. Offer the world your freshest. Treat it like a produce department. Why do you think when you walk in most stores, the very first thing you're looking at is the living foods, the produce and things like that? Because they want you, get these, take these with you, take these out, take these off our hands before they perish. Here's our freshest. It's going to go bad if you don't buy it. Don't you want some of this first? So I get up every day and I try to offer the world some produce, you know, and I do that by being, and it helps me be honest, transparent, not feel bad. I don't let things build up like calluses or bunions that create shame. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Right, right. Um, and talking about things. When people say, "Oh, it's a scab that's not ready to be picked," that's fine. But know when to let that thing fall off.
Yeah.
Even a scab that you don't pick, when it's ready, it's gonna fall off. But you got to let it get air in order to let it heal, which means airing your dirty laundry. You see how all the different and why and what everybody has dirty laundry, and it was dirty until you washed it. You see? And washing is you find the washing in anything that you find joy in that is not just about you, because now you are baptizing everything that you're doing today inside of what matters to you.
And you're freeing yourself.
And it works in all directions.
What allowed you to get to the other side of the abuse? 14 years into it, what was the moment that you said, I got to change this shit?
Oh, oh yeah. When I love this question and I love the answer to it. It wasn't so long ago when I was instructed that it was time to start living outside of the frame. They said, you've been in the frame of your story all your life. And when you're on a wall in a frame, you can only see really, you can go like this, like those pictures that follow you around a room. Is that creepy guy in that steady following me? That kind of thing. But in our own journeys, when you come out of the frame, you live out of the frame, you get to come away from just what's across from you on the wall, the opposing wall. When you're in the frame, you only get to see what's hanging across from you. But when you come out of the frame, you can turn around, back up, and see the big picture, like people do in art galleries. They
Mhm.
back up and you see them looking at it, going like this, because they're looking at it from all directions. They're absorbing the big picture. Live your life. Look at your life like you're looking at a mosaic. It's all got all those little pieces. If you're right up on it, you're not going to see it. But if you back up, you're out of the frame. You back up and you look at the big picture. Everything you live makes sense. Look over there. That trauma was painted into a landscape, into the landscape. It created a tree that now has flowers on it. Look at that betrayal over there. It turned into the fence that has the gate, that has that inviting path that leads up to my door. In that picture, you see? And why is that so important? Because that is a story. One day, Andrew, people are going to say, they may not see this podcast or any of the podcast. People could lose their lives for having our work in their possession, but they can never, as long as people know they're not alone, they can stay inside of darkness, hovering for protection with each other, better together, and whisper stories. What's the story tonight, storyteller? Tonight, I'm going to tell you about a man a long, long time ago. His name was Andrew, and he had a podcast called Permission to Shine. And there it is. You see, it lives on the tongues of people. our stories. Everybody that we look up to, everything that you repeat about, people here, you tell their stories because what they did for you and what they contributed to your journey means something. And how does it mean something to you? Because when they left it where they left it full of meaning, meaningful. So you have to, in order for that to have happened, when they said it, they meant it. When they did it, they meant it. They did it on purpose. They did it with purpose. They did it for purpose. And every time they did, they got up from wherever it was they were knocked down to or stooped down to. They always showed me Mother Teresa when they were teaching me this, that what it took for her before she didn't know she was going to be canonized. She didn't know she was going to be a saint. She was just a young nun. They literally showed me, just for me, I don't know if it really happened, but in my mind, they showed me. She had a task. She was rushing to deliver some bread one day in a wooden bowl with this linen napkin on top of it. I can see it. I can see it. And she was rushing, and she was notorious for being late. And they told her, "You one more, and you're going to be washing some kind of penal thing she was going to have to do." And she was not going to be late. And she was rushing. She flew past an alleyway. And then she backed up because she looked down there. And as far as her eye could see down there were people moaning in pain and just suffering. And she didn't even hesitate, rushed right down there, rushed right down on one knee, didn't hesitate, taking her scarf and using it to clean things on people. And then when that couldn't be used anymore, the only thing left was the thing covering the bread, and she used it. Then now the bread's there, and then she broke it up and she fed it to them. Didn't care about the repercussions. But everything she did unconditionally, she did it on purpose. She did it on purpose. And when she got back up to face what was going to be waiting for her, she faced it with purpose. And we all know how that all turned out, you see. Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of it, you know. And I think we all have that opportunity. And it's just feels good to, you know, if I never do anything in this world, just knowing I've said it here one time, I feel like I've done my best because I know this to be true. You know, and I think that's really what it all boils down to at the end of the day. When I leave this world, I want to look over to the left and I want to look at all those divine memories and be able to just look at them all from all directions and say, look at that. I leave this place and I know this to be true. Look at it. This much I know to be true. I may not have gotten it all, but look at all the things that I'm looking at that I know are true.
Amen.
And I don't think it can get any better. That's it.
I'm so proud to know you. I mean, from going through 22 foster homes to being in the Air Force,
yeah,
right, to going on a years and years long investigation to find your birth mother, to getting close with her, and then the rejection you faced with the siblings, and then you fall into the drug addiction. I don't know if we're going to call it addiction or not. You
For the sake of story.
You said you had Christmas, right? With
some drug addicts.
Drug addicts eating condiments.
And it's that was one of my fondest Christmas memories. Eating condiments in a trailer in Phoenix, Arizona with a bunch of drug addicts. And all we had were condiments. A dollop of mayonnaise, a squirt of mustard, the ketchup, we even put water in it so everybody could have a little, and a spoonful of relish, which was really like the turkey because it had crunch. You could chew it. So, but we were grateful that we had that. We were grateful that we weren't outside like so many other people with the same issue. We were grateful that we didn't have open sores and this and the other, and that we hadn't gone and hurt someone that day to get a fix or whatever. We just sat there talking about how grateful we were. And you know, some people say rock bottom is rock bottom, but and rock bottom is important. Because rock bottom is the table. You know, if you ever seen a Western movie or a Western show and the guys are fighting in the saloon, and that one you want to just stay down. Every time you get up, they're going to whoop your ass. Just stay down. But then when you think it's all over and he's finally done, you see a hand come up over the table. That's what you get with purpose. You get you find whatever it is when there's nothing else in the tank to help you get back up.
Mhm.
Why? Because you smell the aroma of low-hanging fruit. You know, you may not think you have what it takes to reach up and pluck something or pick something or get it because you need that sustenance from it to go on. But low-hanging fruit will find you.
Mhm. Amen. And you did that, right? You went on to get a Lifetime Achievement Award
I did.
from President Biden. You
Yeah.
were in People magazine for a company you started called Apology Accepted,
Yeah.
where you delivered over 1,000 apologies for people who'd gotten into some pretty sticky situations. The Power of We Symposium, the Life Coach,
Yeah.
on and on.
Yeah.
And it just makes me so proud to have you as a friend.
Thank you.
And makes me extremely thankful to Dr. Sanjeev Chopra, our extremely enlightened mutual brother. And I want
An angel.
an angel. And he quoted, he said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent."
That's right.
And that you have done, my friend. And from the entire world, thank you for blessing us
Oh.
with your story and just your being and for giving us permission to really be ourselves.
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity. I really mean that, and giving me a first. Flying to New York City to be interviewed in person, it's a first. And you guys cherish your first. Because if I get to do this 100 times more in this journey, those will be the ones that came after today. This will always, when I look over to the left one day for the last time, this moment will sit over there because it is a first. So, yeah, thank you so much.
I'm
What an honor.
extremely honored.
Same
The
here.
honor is all mine. And I have to put it out there in October. Is it October 24th?
Yes, October 24th, 10/24/24. The Power of We Symposium, Naperville, Illinois. 750 of the greatest kids on the planet, and about 300 to 400 people just like you there making history with these kids. And so, yeah,
And you'll have a virtual link as well.
there'll be a pay-per-view. You can watch it from all over the world. And if you could make it to the Chicagoland area, we would love to have you there. We were in Romania in May, touching 250 kids' lives there. And I took 14 of my coaching clients with me, and we partnered with 14 actors and actresses from Romania who all donated an entire week. And we just went over there and did whatever these kids wanted to do for 8 hours every day. And it just was life changing, just so wonderful. And so we're ready. We're home now, and Power We Symposium is for all of us. It belongs to us. It really does. It's not a nonprofit. It is a movement, and it is for all people. So I hope to see you there.
Amen. I'll
Thank
be
you.
there.
Yeah. Thanks.
Let's keep kicking ass and shine bright. Thank you, Dr. Lauren.
Yay. Thank you. Bye, you guys.